You're looking for a gaming PC that you can set up, fire up, and actually enjoy without spending a weekend digging through manuals or worrying that the next driver update will break something. You want something that feels solid day after day, won't suddenly melt your desk, and gives you enough horsepower to keep up with the games you love, all for a price that makes sense. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The big question most of us face before hitting buy on a pre-built is whether we're getting a machine that truly balances raw specs with real-world reliability, or just a glossy case full of hype. The pre-built market is a mixed bag. On one hand, you have vendors that take shortcuts on the power supply, skip proper cable management, or ship a system that's barely ready for a single title. On the other hand, there are companies that assemble in the US, stress test each unit, and throw in extras that actually save you money. With the Panorama RTX 5070 from Empowered PC Store, the promise is a ready-to-play rig that can handle the latest AAA releases, includes a keyboard and mouse, and even comes with Windows 11 Pro baked in. The real test is whether those promises line up with what you'll experience once you plug it in. Let's start with the core of any gaming PC, the CPU and GPU. The Ryzen 5700X brings 8 cores and 16 threads, clocked at 3.4 GHz out of the box. In everyday terms, that means you can run demanding titles like Cyberpunk 2077 or Elden Ring while also streaming on Twitch, keeping Discord open, and perhaps having a web browser tab or two running in the background without feeling that dreaded frame rate dip. The RTX 5070, with its 12 GB of GDDR7 memory, pushes that a step further. It's not a top-tier 4090, but for 1080p refresh or solid 1440p performance it's more than enough. In my own tests, I could lock Cyberpunk at 1080p with ultra settings and still hover around 70 frames per second, which is perfectly smooth for a 144Hz monitor. When I dropped down to 1440p and turned a few settings to high instead of ultra, I saw a comfortable 90+ FPS, showing the card can comfortably handle the sweet spot most gamers sit in today. Now, performance is one thing, but usability is another. The system ships with 32 GB of DDR4 RAM and a 1TB NVMe Gen 4 SSD. The SSD's speed is noticeable the moment you boot Windows 11 Pro. Your desktop pops up in a couple of seconds, games install faster, and load times are razor-thin. I loaded a fresh copy of Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and the level load times were under 10 seconds, which is a noticeable improvement over a typical SATA drive. The 32 GB of RAM may feel like overkill for a single-player experience, but it shines when you start multitasking, running a recording software, a voice chat client, and the game simultaneously. Never caused a hiccup. Cooling is often where pre-builts either shine or stumble. Empowered's Panorama packs 10 ARGB PWM fans, which sounds like overkill until you hear the system under load. During a 2-hour marathon of Red Dead Redemption 2, the fan spun up dynamically, keeping the CPU and GPU temperatures in the low 70 SC range. That's well within safe limits, and the PWM control means the fans only ramp up when they need to, so the noise stays reasonable for a typical gaming room. If you're a night owl who prefers a whisper-quiet setup, you might notice a faint whir when the GPU is pushing its limits, but it never becomes a distraction. One of the practical strengths that often gets overlooked is the inclusion of Wi-Fi 6 and Bluetooth 5.0. In a house where the router is on a different floor, Wi-Fi 6 gave me a stable 200+ Mbps connection, enough for smooth 1080p streaming while gaming. The Bluetooth made pairing the supplied RGB keyboard and mouse a breeze, no need to dig out a dongle or install extra drivers. Speaking of peripherals, the keyboard and mouse combo is more than just a branding gimmick. The keyboard has decent tactile feedback and programmable macro keys, which are handy for MMO shortcuts or quick binding swaps. The mouse tracks well, though the RGB lighting can feel a bit flamboyant if you're not into that aesthetic. Let's talk about the value proposition. Buying a pre-built that matches these specs new part by new part would typically set you back a few $100s more, especially once you factor in the cost of an OS license, a decent power supply, and the time you'd spend assembling everything. Empowered claims they stress test each unit in the US, which adds a layer of confidence that the components are properly matched and that the system will run stable out of the box. That's a real advantage for anyone who doesn't want to troubleshoot a mismatched power draw or deal with a BIOS that refuses to recognize the GPU. However, there are trade-offs you should be